Welcome. Here we are for the Week Zero VDL-S Power Rankings. Here with me is Ted. Say hi, Ted.
Hello, everybody. I'm Ted.
So as always, this is obviously just an opinion of a couple people. We've took the averages of these. We had a couple of ties in which we had to use some tiebreaker metrics, but for the most part, it's just the opinions. Hopefully, y'all enjoy this and maybe identify some things that you might want to change about your teams, or some things you like about your teams, or things like that. So with that, let's just get straight into the rankings. So starting off at number 24, we have Alex's Diggersby's. What is your thoughts on this team and why they might be 24th, Ted?
Um, I had in my initial rankings, I had it up pretty high, but when I looked at it a little bit more, I realized that it's probably not the best team overall. Looking between like the typings and the different weaknesses each Pokemon has. Obviously, like having both of the new Reggies is probably unique. Probably the most unique thing about this team. Um, Obviously Reggie Lucky is really good in VGC. It did a lot of work in Worlds. If you guys haven't been watching that, um, Reggie Draco is a really good Dragon type. I think Dragon Energy plus Dragon Maw does so much damage, especially being a spread move. Um, I think Torcat is always a good support option, especially with this team. Um, but I think overall uh, there's just a lot of weaknesses for this team, especially against like freeze dry, like for the Tapu Fini, Cottony, Appleton, and the Reggie Draco all being weak to ice, and the same for Pheasant. Um, they do have two steel types, which is kind of concerning because again, Tapu Fini is the only one that's resisting those fire moves, and as well as Torracat. So um, yeah, there's just a lot of weaknesses overall. But I like the supporting pieces that this team has, and I think it could potentially succeed and exceed our initial rankings for week zero.
Oh yeah,
But I think for now, I think it has probably one of the worst weaknesses out of all the teams.
oh yeah.
I'm not sure, but that's what I'm seeing right now in front of my screen.
Well, yeah, I
Um,
think the big week or big issues that I think a lot of the rankers had is that if you look at the type chart in this team, they have multiple major concerns. Not only ice, like you mentioned, but also rock. They only have one rock resist, and it's not even that good of a resist, given that it's Doug Trio, and Doug Trio is pretty frail mon. And then I think the other issue I think I have with the team and why some people might rank it a little lower is I definitely think there's some a little bit dyssynergy that exists within a couple of these major pairings, namely Tapu Fini and Reggie Lucky are the big two Pokemon on their team, but Reggie Draco is really not great with Tapu Fini. It prevents you from being able to set up, or the Misty Terrain makes its damage output significantly worse. And similarly, Reggie Lucky, Appleton, Reggie Drago, all as the Dynamax threats kind of don't synergize particularly well with Tapu Fini either. And so I think that kind of has that overall kind of does a little bit of an issue with that. And then in addition, a lot of they have a fair amount of kind of redundant Pokemon, I would say, to a certain extent, because I don't really think that like Unfescent and Corviknight really are both needed. They both kind of do the same thing more or less, which is max airstreams, tailwinds, supportive moves.
hmm.
But overall, I think there's a lot of powerful Pokemon individually if they're able to use them, well.
Yeah, I would also potentially like to see a better Tailwind user other than a Pheasant, because like if Cottony survived the transfer saga between 7 and 8 and it saw a Tailwind, I think it would definitely be much higher than 24. So my recommendation would probably get a better Tailwind user than a Pheasant, but who knows? This team could definitely do well if put in the right situation. Um, I love the bus. with Reggie Lucky. You can do a lot of damage with that. So yeah, we'll just see what happens.
Yeah. So with that, let's go up to number 23, which is the Midland Marowaks. So I'll just pass it to you, Ted. What are your thoughts on the team?
Um, first of all, I love the combination with Riolu and the Dracozolt. I think that's a fantastic combo between both of them. Rotom P combined with the Tapu Bill is also another good combo that I've seen before in draft. Um, Obstagoon is probably one of the most underrated picks in this draft, or in both drafts, VDL-V and S. Um, I think it's as well another fantastic support option with Parting Shot. Um, and overall, all the pieces work together. Um, Probably one of the main issues I would probably see is having a Pokemon that's much slower than Regirock and Trick Room could definitely be taken advantage of with this team. Also, probably having a better way of setting up sand for the Dragozolt would probably be probably like Baby Hippo or some user of Sandstorm would potentially be great for this team. But I think the main concern would probably having the opposing team having a slower Pokemon than Regirock to outspeed in Trick Room would probably be the main concern. But overall, I think the pieces work well together. Is just that other part, having a your opponent's team having a slower Pokemon than Regirock is kind of the main concern there.
Well, my issue isn't really on that side. I think that is a big issue. I think one of the big issues on mine is that they don't actually have that much speed. Other than um, other than Starmie, they don't have a single Pokemon over 100 base speed, and with
Yeah,
that, in addition, they don't have any. They don't have a great amount type of speed control. I would say either. They have like Icy Wind and Electro Web on those, but they don't have any like very consistent speed control, especially with something like Rotom. If you're using Electro Web as your speed control, frequently you're going to want something like a Choice Scarf or something like that. And so I think that's kind of one of the big issues that I see with the team. However, I do think Regirock and Dracozolt are an incredibly powerful Pokemon when Dynamax, clear body, being able to set up some weakness policy, shenanigans, and not being able to lower stats is powerful. Hustle is an incredibly powerful ability in max format. However, Riolu kind of is the only thing that kind of, you know, it seems like the required partner for both of them.
yeah,
And so it seems a little bit like there's not as many, clear partners or ways to, abuse those two Pokemon.
yeah. And I think the only way for the team to be fast is probably just max Airstream Dracozolt, and I think that's it. Unless I'm missing another Pokemon that gets Airstream. Not sure.
I think, well, yeah, like Aegislash does, but Aegislash is not the greatest Dynamax threat because it can't transform back into its shield form.
Yeah,
So, but so yeah, so like I said, so it's a very powerful Pokemon's, but just kind of a little bit, little bit, I guess disenergy or lacking of something that, that made it from a good team to a great team. So with that, we can move up to number 22, which is the Ninja Squirtles. So what are your thoughts on this team?
um, I think it's very unique that it has three NFE mons. I think that's quite bold, but I think it can work. Um, Now Cleffa does not get follow me, so that's a little concerning. Because a lot of the Ninja Squirtles mons are pretty frail, other than Milotic. So that's probably one of the main concerns here. But I think having Crobat as a fast tailwind is always great. Um, Two Unburdenmons is also good as well, but they don't have a way of procking Unburden unless they self proc with probably like an Ice Shard or Quick Attack or whatever prior new move they have. Um, Obviously, Double Intimidate is also great as well with the Scrafty and the Landers Therian. Um, Ditto is also a pretty unique pick. Having being able to copy stats from the opposing side of another Pokemon is always great. Um, yeah, those are probably just the main things I've seen of right now. But have I think the main problem with this team is having three NFV mons, quite concerning.
Well, yeah. So I definitely think that's one of the big issues that I had, especially because two of the three in Eevee and Cleffa are just actually notably worse than available Pokemon that weren't drafted. The Eevee is just almost completely useless in my opinion. It's just and that's I definitely rank personally lower teams lower if I feel like they have one or two Pokemon that are like useless. And I definitely think Eevee is not good on the team, and I don't think it's a useful Pokemon. An available Pokemon that I think could be have some use would be a Meowth, which is in the same tier. Also has a Gigantamax form, but its Gigantamax form is better and it's faster and it has Fake Out. And on the other side, Cleffa, like it's exclusively a friend guard mon that you're gonna basically be forced to run with Focus Sash. Another Pokemon that is available right now is Jigglypuff, and Jigglypuff also is friend guard, but is incredibly more bulky, and kind of fills the same role as a friend guard mon that could do even more stuff, has a better, wider selection of move pools, and so like those two changes on the team, I think would immediately make this team from, in my mind, from like, in the bottom five to probably in the mid to like maybe like the 14th ish 14 to 10 to 14 range in my opinion, because I like a lot of the other Pokemon and a lot of other things on their team. My only issue outside of those kind of two that I would consider as like basically useless Pokemon on their team is I'm a little bit concerned with them only having one flying resist, and uh, a lot of and that kind of is not great in a format in which Max Airstream is going to be incredibly common because it's such a powerful move.
Yeah, I would agree with that. This team already played week one, but like we said before, this is just taking into account of if they didn't play a game, a
Yeah.
single game yet. So,
Oh yeah.
um,
We're a little late, but yeah. So we're not accounting for any of the results so far. If we end up doing week one power rankings, which we'll hopefully try to, it'll include all of the matches from week one. Um, but with that, I guess we can continue on to number 21, which is the Waterloo Warriors. So, what are your thoughts on this team?
I think I would say it's not a really a hard trick room team because they do have some good fast options, but the trick room side of this team is definitely really good. Um, Reuniclus and Mudstill is a really good combo. Um, Being able to set up a Sanima boost or being own tempo with Swagger, Grimmsnarl, um, Prankster, Swagger, Grimmsnarl, is also another good option. Trevenant and Aggron are definitely another good combo in Trick Room. Uh, and moving on to the fast mode with Lopunny, Jolteon, and Salamence. I think those three are complement each other pretty well. Um, Lopunny being able to provide Fake Out, Icy Wind, Charm, Switcheroo are those four moves specifically are really good on it. Salamence being the probably the main Dynamax threat on this team is I think is good. Um, it's just that this team kind of suffers a little bit from ice. Other than Phalanx, I think.
Aggron's the only ice resist on the team.
Oh, okay, I only Aggron. I thought Phalanx
But
did,
yeah,
but
so yeah,
um, I think probably that's probably one of the main weaknesses on this team. But I think the trigger mode is really good on this team.
oh yeah. No, I definitely agree. I think the Trick Room mode is very good. Grimmsnarl is an amazing Pokemon. Any team that has that has the ability to win games. I think that the issues why this team is a little bit lower, despite having that aspect and really powerful Fake Out Mon and Lopunny, good, fast intimidate and Dynamax threat and Salamence is the type chart, like we mentioned, which they're really weak to ice with only one ice weak resist. In addition, their flying is not the best as well. Other than that, I definitely also am not a huge fan of specifically Shedinja on their team. They have a lot of flying and dark and rock weaknesses on their team. And, typically I'm not a huge fan of Shedinja on a team that has a lot of weaknesses shared with Shedinja, especially when you don't have a lot of resists. And like I said, kind of going with the flying weakness, which I'm not a huge fan of in any team in this format. If if your opponent's already bringing flying coverage because it's good into your team, Shedinja kind of becomes even more of a liability.
Yeah, I would agree with all those points.
Um, any other thoughts before we move on?
Uh, no. I just think the trigger mode on this team is really good.
Oh yeah, no. Kafragius is an amazing mon, and I think Grimmsnarl is one of the better partners to set up Trick Room because you got the prankster. But anyways, with that, we can move on to number 20, which is the Pogging Porygons. So what are your thoughts on the Pogging Porygons?
Um, I think it's just another Wheezing Regigigas team, obviously being the main vocal point of this team. It's really, really strong in the Dynamax format. Um, the only thing that it suffers from is taking if you take out the Wheezing pretty early, like meaning like turn one Max Quake into it, or a Max Mindstorm into it, um, depending on the set that you're bringing. Um, but other key parts of the same Klefki and the Moltres Galar, I think it's pretty good combo. Setting up screens for the Moltres Galar um, probably most definitely helps it. And being a max threat with a max darkness or max airstream definitely helps this team. I think the trigger mode with the Slowbro and Lorange is quite interesting. Slowbro not being an ideal trigger mod, but I think it can work on this team if they play their cards right. Um, one thing I would like to see is probably a better faster mode other than Healer Lisk. That's probably one of the main concerns. But I think overall, it's probably has good supporting pieces for the Regigigas to succeed. And it's probably one of the teams that I'm looking forward to see to battle.
Yeah. I think they have a solid fast mode personally. I like a lot of their support mons. My issue with their one of the issues why I think they're a little bit low is I feel like they're lacking a little bit on powerful Dynamax threats. I feel like they only have really two powerful Dynamax threats, and the other ones are kind of more you don't really want to make them a Dynamax threat too frequently, which is mainly the Moltres and the Regigigas. The rest of the team kind of feels like are better as non-max threats or support mons, and so I definitely think that it gives them gives the coach Osi Frey a little bit less flexibility in that, and then in addition, obviously Regigigas definitely frequently, if not always, wants to be paired next to the Weezing, which even gives you a little bit more. So I definitely feel like the team may be a little bit rigid in the ability to play. However, I do think Slowking or Slowbro is a great trick room setter. Regenerator. I like Klefki is one of my favorite prankster mons, and I think Rapidash is definitely underrated as a lower tier mon, and but I definitely would like them to show me wrong, but I definitely feel like they're going to be leaning on Moltres and Regigigas Dynamax in almost every week.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Um, I guess with that, we can move on to number 19, which is the
The
Alcremies.
Athens, yeah, Athens Alchemist.
Athens.
That's their full name.
Uh,
Athens, yeah.
yeah, Athens Alcremies. So with that, what are your thoughts on them?
I think it's a pretty good Metagross team. Now I currently have one in the PDCL, which is another league. Um, but I think the supporting pieces around Metagross is pretty well thought out. Obviously, the main one being support Ninetales Lola with the Aurora Veil and Snow Running. I think that's the key to this team's success. Um, Hydreigon, really good Dynamax threat. Um, spamming those Max Darknesses and Max Wormwinds definitely helps the team's defenses a little bit more. The combination of the Dust Noir and the Wishy Washy being the main trigger mode is really, really good. I've seen it perform well in other leagues, so I'm really excited about that. Um, Serena is also another good supporting piece, stopping priority attacks from Prankster and Fake Out. Um, and I think like Wigglytuff and Throw, sorry, are also other good supporting pieces. So um, I think overall the team is really well balanced. Um, it's just that there's a few weaknesses that can be pointed out. Ground is probably one of the main focuses on this team. Having, let's see, I think just three, but I think it's quite major for this team. Um, but yeah, I think that's it. I think I'll hand this over to you because I can't quite see anything else, but
Um,
I have to continue thinking on that.
well, yeah. So personally, with this team, I don't think there's any like huge glaring issues with it. That's one of the reasons why I honestly think I ranked it a little higher. I think that Hydreigon Metagross together is a really amazing core. I believe they share no weaknesses, and in addition to that, the Hydreigon has um, the ground immunity, and it resists ghosts, it resists dark, and so it has a lot of they kind of resist each other's weaknesses pretty well. So they're good switch ins, or if you have some sort of ally switch shenanigans. I think that um, Dustnor is a really good Trick Room setter, and I think Wishiwashi is a good Dynamax, Dynamax threat under Trick Room, and I definitely think that the ability to prevent priority moves with Serena is incredibly powerful. So I'm not really sure, why the team might not be a little higher. I think the biggest one, synergy that I would like to see is maybe a little bit better, speed control with the possibility of a Dynamax Metagross. Metagross really likes, bulldoze support to get like the speed control and also activating the weakness policy at the same time, or even Tailwind support, and they don't really have any of that. So maybe that would help the team a little bit. I think the only bulldoze user on the team is Hydreigon, and Hydreigon is obviously not the one you really want to be running, as a support mon, since it's has absurd special attack. But overall, I do like the team. I like all the mons. I think it does look good though. And
Uh, I
yep.
I think Dustmore gets Bulldoze. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Oh yes, you're right.
Or yeah. I think it gets Bulldoze and Earthquake. So that's another option as well.
Yeah, so you're
Um,
right. I was thinking of fast bulldoze, but yeah, you're right.
but yeah, I think that's it for this team.
So I think so. So the we like your team, even though it's ranked a little bit lower than, but 19 is not that particularly low. With that, continuing on to number 18, we have um, the Snowbell Blizzards. So what are your thoughts on this team?
Uh, I think again is probably one of the other unique teams. Cinderace and the Togetic are obviously the main core to this team. Dynamax or Gigantamax Cinderace is probably the best option for this team. Fireball does a lot of damage, and being able to redirect those super effective attacks into Cinderace is probably great, especially like a Max Quake. Um, it's definitely good. The both Trick Room and Tailwind options are great as well. Gotharita, I think it's underrated as a Trick Room user. Having access to Fake Out is also great as well, and Aerodactyl being the main. fast trick room or fast tailwind, sorry, fast tailwind user is great as well. Um, I think solving like the defensive issues with Lapras is also great as well. With GMX Resonance, a great move. It's probably one of the better Gigantamax mons in the Dynamax format. But I think overall it has great supporting pieces. Probably one of the weirder picks on this team is probably Coughing. But other than that, I think the support pieces around the team is great.
Well, yeah, no, I think Togetic Cinderace is an amazing combo. I think Lapras is always an incredibly powerful Pokemon. I think I agree that Gothita is a good Trick Room setter, and being able to prevent switch outs is always powerful. And Marowak is a desperately underrated Trick Room sweeper. I'm not a huge fan of the Coughing or the Vileplume, in all honesty. They don't seem super exciting for me. I feel like, especially doubling up that poison makes their team weaker to psychic than I would like, because they only have one psychic resist. Well, kind of like one and a half, and because Cinderace can technically be a psychic resist, but they only have one real psychic resist. In addition, um, they do have a pretty bad rock weakness as well. And I think that's kind of the biggest issues with their team is like they have great tailwind support, they have great Dynamax threats, they have good trick room and speed control, and I think the main issue is kind of just they have a couple types that are really good into their entire team, and it makes your opponents not have to be as concerned about mixing up their moves. And so I believe that they have multiple. In addition to psychic and rock, I think they're also pretty weak to water as well. With only I think two water resist, so it's so that's kind of the I think the big issue with the team. Even though kind of all the other things, disregarding the type chart, everything else looks amazing.
Yeah, I think also like the Beware kind of solves a little bit of those typing issues with Fluffy, but I don't think that's quite enough to compensate with everything with all the other weaknesses.
Well,
But I
definitely
think
not with the
that's
psychic weakness. That's the
yeah,
because
yeah,
it's fluff is
that's probably the only thing. Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, so I think so long story short, we think your team's great. We think that if you maybe had a Vileplume or Wheezing was not psychic, like was a mon that resisted psychic and rock moves, your team would be probably 5 points, 6 points higher.
Yeah,
Uh,
I would agree with that.
anyways, with that, we can go up to number 17, which is the Dallas Zygardes. So what are your thoughts on this team?
Um, Before I start, Debes, just to let you know, I think your team is pretty good. Just don't be offended. Um, I think Garchomp with Primarina is really a really good combo. Primarina kind of helps Garchomp with its ice weakness other than freeze dry. And I think Garchomp complements with Primarina as well. It has good. This team has good redirection with Volcarona. Has a really high special defense, so it can take those ice hits pretty well from away or taking those ice moves away from Garchomp. Meowstic is obviously a good prankster Pokemon with Fake Out, Thunder Wave, uh, both double screens. Togetic again is another good Fake Out mon with Lightning Rod. Uh, and I think those bottom four mons having a good support option. Obviously, Flexion with Gale Wings, setting up immediate Tailwind is always good. Avalugg is always good under Trick Room, paired with the Cofagrigus. I think it's a good combo. And Zoroark is always good to have with Illusion, being able to trick out your opponent, possibly faking out into the Zoroark slot. Um, it's always a good thing. I think Persian is probably another underrated pick in this draft. Um, Obviously, Gummer has shown in the past using Persian really well. So um, I think I think overall it has a good amount of support. Looking at it right now, I don't see a whole lot of weakness other than the ice. Um, but I think the team covers for that really well.
Oh, yeah, I think defensively the team, like type chart wise, the team is solid. I think that they have their high tier bonds are all incredibly powerful, incredibly impactful. In the Garchomp, the Primarina, the Meowstic, the Volcarona, even the Cofferegus. I'm not a huge fan of their like Trick Room package per se. Obviously Avalog can be pretty powerful, um, but the fact that it has like such an abysmal special defense makes it very inconsistent. Um, and then Rodriguez, I don't know, but then again, Rodriguez is very, I think is a solid, supportive, mon even without Trick Room with Will O Wisp, Haze, Iron Defense, Body Press stuff, things like that. So I don't know. I think how I would describe this team is like there's a lot of nice Pokemon, but nothing that's like super exciting to me. I think that's probably how I would describe it. It's a mon that where it's like I think Garchomp's solid, but not like I wouldn't consider it an amazing mon or premier. I don't see any major kind of huge synergies, and that's kind of where I put it. And this is why it's kind of in the middle tier Pokemon, which is as good Pokemon. It has a reasonable type chart, but it doesn't like excite me per se.
Yeah, I would agree with those points as well. Forgot to mention, Maractus is probably a good underrated Storm Dragon user. But I don't see it being much useful because I don't think I think he has a lot of resist to water anyways. So
Yeah.
um, I don't think that's quite useful. Probably changing out for something else. But again, I could be wrong about this team. It could do really well, and we just never know.
Oh yeah, I think Maractus is fine, but yeah, it's Storm Drain doesn't seem super necessary in this team defensively because Volcaron is the only water weak mon. But yeah, like I said, I like all the things going for it, but just nothing that like I can hold on to and say, oh, I love this part. Continuing on, number 16, we have oh my gosh,
Celo-
yeah.
Celadon Stuffles, I
There.
think.
Yes, that is the team. So I guess with that, what are your thoughts on the team?
Um, I think it's quite interesting because it's kind of like a semi-rain team with the. I think what's the first evolution of Grimstar? I keep forgetting its name.
Oh my gosh, it's impotent.
Yeah, Impotent. I think it does get Rain Dance, so setting up an immediate Rain Dance for the Mantime is always good, and it helps out with Thizor and the Gastrodon, and as well as the Sea King, definitely. However, it does kind of neutralize the Arcanine a little bit, but they don't have to set up Rain Dance for this team to do well because I think those first 3 months with Toxicroak, Rotomo, and Arcanine are probably really good on their own individually. But I think all three work together well with the Clefable being able to redirect their each of their weaknesses. Works really well.
So
They're
real quick, impotent does not get rain dance.
okay. Well, I guess it kind of I guess with that fact, I guess it kind of lowers my expectations of this team a little bit. But again, they can manually set up Rain Dance with the Mantine because it also gets Tailwind, so that's another good thing. Their Trick Room mode, I don't quite see it working well. A little bit, I I, I don't know how fast Tyrantrum is, but if it's any faster than probably base 60, I don't think it worked well in Trick Room other than the Rangaroo. Um, but yeah, I think that's the only thing I don't see quite working. But definitely the rain mode on this team is really strong.
Well, yeah, I don't know. So that talking about as we talk about the rain team, I definitely seems like this team very much could use a rain like a more consistent rain setter. It looks like Rotom Mo is probably their best rain setter, and uh, but they definitely have a lot of Pokemon like that. I don't. I feel like the Seeking, the Gastrodon, and the Mantine kind of overlap a little bit, which is a little bit awkward for my taste. Of like, I'm not a huge fan of having triple water Pokemon, especially. Obviously one has Lightning Rod, one of them has Storm Drain, one of them has like
Yeah,
Swift Swim, but definitely a little bit awkward in my mind. The Impidit, I definitely is a mon I don't value as high. Its move pool is pretty abysmal, as we saw with the fact it doesn't learn rain dance. However,
yeah,
Clefable next to any good offensive threat is a powerful combination, and they have some very good offensive threats. You can get Rotom with the nasty pots, or Life Orb or something like that does massive damage. You can do Scizor, which has a great base stat. Tyrantrum has amazing, I think like 100 and like 20, 130 base attack. Arcanine. I feel like I'm not positive, but I think Toxicroak gets beat up if you want to do Justified Arcanine instead. Um, and then I think Oranguru is one of the better Trick Room setters. It has inner focus to prevent fake outs. It's incredibly bulky, and it only has, it doesn't have the ghost weakness like most psychic mons do. And then with Clefable, you can pretty much have guaranteed Trick Room if you want. Um, I definitely think those combinations are good. And then Gastrodon and Tyrantrum are both great Trick Room sweepers. So I definitely think those are some of the strengths of the team. But I definitely think that it's a little bit awkward that a lot of the team kind of feels like it really wants a rain setter, but it doesn't have a great rain setter. And I definitely think that uh, it. Yeah, I think that's kind of my thoughts with the team. Any other
yeah.
thoughts?
Just to correct you, Toxicroak does not get beat up, so
Okay,
I don't think. Yeah, I don't think the rest of the team gets beat up. So that's kind of, I guess, their loss. I guess, but again, in trades they could potentially pick up a beat up user and utilize Justified Arcanine a little bit more.
that's fair. Well, yeah, but also they do get they got Tailwind, good Trick Room, so they got some strengths despite not having and I think some of these lack of synergies um, are kind of the reason why this team's around 16 rather than in the top 10.
Yeah,
So with that, we move on to number 15, which is the Mawwiles. I
the
forgot.
or Atletico de Mawel,
There
which
we go.
and coached by Tom, good friend of mine.
Okay,
Um,
so what do you think of your good friend's
uh,
team?
um, I just like to say that if I lose to them week one, which I do play them week one, I would not be surprised because I think this team should definitely be ranked higher. I think the core of Zapdos and Venusaur is really good. Um, Zapdos is probably probably a great Dynamax user, having strong max airstreams and a strong max lightning. It gets Max Flare to set up for the Venusaur, but they have other options to set up Sun for Venusaur. I think the trigger mode is really good with the Mawile and the Sudowoodo. I think Sudowoodo is underrated. Having Rockhead with Head Smash is really good. Clawitzer is also another good uh, Mon under Trick Room. And again, Sableye, probably a really, really annoying Prankster user. Having access to Rain Dance and Sunny Day is really good for this team. Um, t- Having Fake Out is also good as well with Taunt. Um, and Tricker Mimikyu is probably really common, especially in this format, um, and is also really annoying as well. Diggersby is also another great max threat, along with I keep forgetting this one. Jangmo, I think, right?
Uh,
No, not Jangmo.
Oh, Como.
Yeah, Kamo, sorry. Um, I think those two are great as well for Dynamax threat. But yeah, I think overall it should probably be ranked higher, but I get why it could be ranked right here at 15.
Oh, I really like the team. I think it has a lot going for it. I think that the team seems to kind of for the team to get going. I definitely think it revolves a little bit around Mawile. I think Mawile being able to set up the Sunny Day for the Venusaur or Quash for so that Pokemon like Diggersby who aren't that bulky but have great damage output can Dynamax and try to one shot things, or fake out so that you can get up Trick Room consistently. So I definitely feel like the team seems to be centered around Mawile a little, or not Mawile, Sableye a little bit, which
Yeah.
is not really a bad thing, but it's something that's notable. I do agree that I think this team could definitely be a little bit underrated. Uh, Max Vines, whatever G Max Venus or whatever. I don't know what its move is, but uh,
Max Vine Lash, I think it's
yeah,
called.
Max Vinelash, whatever. The all those the residual damage is absurd. I definitely think that, and in addition to that, they have some some fairly annoying Pokemon. I think maybe the team could use a little bit more bulk. I would say a lot of their Pokemon are kind of either only bulky on one of two sides or have a four times weakness in Como. And so that might be one of the issues because I definitely think that, Vine Lash is a lot better and bulkier, grindier teams so that you can get the full effect. And so maybe that's a little bit of why the team might be ranked a little bit lower. But I do think that they have a very good diversity of support and offensive mon, good Dynamax threats, and also a lot of mons that don't need to be in Dynamax to be good.
Yeah. I also think the Sync could potentially be forced to run a lot of move or a lot of type resist berries like the like Zapdos, Diggersby, and the Vita Star could all just be forced to run Yachi Berry, whatever week they need it to be, and I guess Mawile and Sudowoodo and Flareon could potentially run Sugar Berry. So I think that's probably a little concerning, but I don't think it's that major.
Yeah, I don't think it's that big of a deal. Like I said, I think the team's good. I definitely think it could be a little bit higher ranking. I would like, a little bit more consistent bulk, but, you know, it's not that big of a, not that big into the world, especially with some very good offensive threats in Diggersby, Zapdos, Sudowoodo. So, anyways, with that, we'll continue to number 14, which is the Georgia Gurchins. So I guess I'll start off with this one. As we just mentioned in the last one with Venusaur, Blastoise also has the residual damage, just like Venusaur. That effect by itself is incredibly powerful. So, obviously, I think that by itself kind of makes the team a little bit more exciting. Um, I also think that Liepard is very powerful, especially with the possibility of terrain, because I think Unburden, Liepard, or Prankster Liepard both can be very good. They have a pretty consistent way to get up Trick Room, but one of my issues with the team is that I don't think they have the greatest Trick Room sweepers per se. I guess like the Gurchin is pretty much their best sweeper, which I guess is pretty good, but is a little bit not the best damage output outside of electric coverage specifically. I do like Tangrowth as kind of support or offensive mon, kind of that combination and the ability to get consistent tailwind or pretty fast tailwind. But overall, I think the team has very good damage output. I think they have some very good support mons in Quagsire, Liepard, and Warbeetle. Um, so I don't know. I think one of my issues with the team though is their type chart is a little bit weak. Specifically, they have exactly one ice resist, and it's Blastoise, which means they have 0 freeze dry resists. And in addition to that, they have 0 fairy resists on their team as well. So, basically, freeze dry just hits everything on their team for at least neutral. And so I think that's one of the big issues with the team, why it might not be as high as it could be. Any thoughts on from your side?
Um, like you mentioned, I think the Blastoise is probably the main focal point of this team. I think again, again is probably one of the better Gigantamax forms, having Gmax Candidate doing residual damage each turn. But I also think the Orbeetle having a Gigantamax form is also pretty underrated. Um, Now they don't have a way to utilize Gmax Gravitas, I think it's called, with Hypnosis. But again, I think it's a good chance of having automatic gravity is probably really good. But I guess it doesn't really help with the Tornadus Therian. But yeah, uh, the trigger mode is probably really strong as well. But like you mentioned, like they don't really have a good way of utilizing that other than the Gurchin. So I would probably like to see another mon that can be under Trick Room. But I think overall it's pretty good. Unburden with the Gurchin and the Life Part is also really good. Tangrowth being a fantastic support option with Sleep Powder and Rage Powder is really good. Naganadel is quite weak, but it's super fast and has a high special attack, so it can hit really hard with that fast speed. So yeah, I think overall, I think it just depends on how well they utilize the team. Yeah, that's pretty much it for me.
So with that, we can move up to number 13, which is the Nova Scotia Scythers. So what are your thoughts on this team?
Um, well, being third in the row, this team has another starter with the Gigantamax Charizard. Again, it's similar to Blastoise and Venusaur with the residual damage move, but Wildfire hits way harder in the sun, and it's probably the better out of the three, in my opinion. But I think the main focal point of this team is that fantasy core with the Cobalion, um, Comfey, and the Gudra. I think those three together are fantastic. Comfey supports both in the Dynamax format because Cobalion most likely wants Dynamax because it doesn't want to take any of those Max Quakes or Max Flares. Um, and I think, let's see,
But oh yeah, so
I keep forgetting the move. Floor Healing, there you go.
yeah, Floor
Floor
Healing.
Healing definitely helps help Cobalion out. Yeah, yeah, floor Healing. I said that. Floor Healing helps both out with their HP a little bit. And Giga Drain on the Comfey again helps out the Guja with Sap Sipper. Having immediate attack boost was great. But Draining Kiss into Guja is also another good strat with weakness policy and just spamming those max worm wins and max flares, max overgrowths, just to a few moves. Um, and I think the other supporting pieces are good as well. Rhydon is probably one of the few that's a little confusing to me. But again, I guess it helps out the Charizard with Lightning Rod. I think Togepi. I wouldn't say it's underrated, but I think I should say it's underrated because having Eviolite makes it bulky, has Follow Me, has Yawn, Life Dew, Helping Hand, just thinking a few moves. I think it's great, but it still gets KO'd by a Max Steel Spike, even with the Berry Berry. That's probably the only concern, but I think overall the team has a good synergy with that fantasy core.
Well, yeah, I know I was talking to Matrix when they were ranking for theirs, and they said like Comfy Gudra by itself made them rank it pretty high because that combination is so scary. Because Gudra's special defense is so amazing, and being able to Max Dragon to lower the physical attack of the opposing Pokemon to make it really hard for it to deal with is really good. Being able to activate weakness policy, or if you don't want weakness policy, activate a sap sipper, like you mentioned, is incredibly powerful. I agree that Togepi is, maybe not the best redirector. However, without a Tailwind or other redirection, I definitely think Charizard really appreciates the Togepi. So because being able to get one, max Airstream and then a max, Wildfire off with Charizard, can completely get you in an amazing position, especially with the fact that this team does have a fair amount of bulk, especially with like Comfy giving healing, the Gudra, the Cobalion, the Skunk Tank. They are all really bulky Pokemon, and so they can kind of, abuse the wildfire damage a little bit more than some of the other teams we were mentioning because that I didn't feel like had as many, Pokemon that could do as longevity. I can't remember Comfy's move pool. I know Mess Spirit gets Sunny Day. So, they can also do that as a means to boost Charizard's attack a little bit. The I think right on like defensively doesn't seem like the most exciting, but it is, it does have a very high attack and is a reasonable trick room speed tier. And so if they want to go with the trick room team, I think it's a reasonable trick room option. But other than that, I don't think I have too much to say. And anything else?
Yeah.
Any other thoughts on your team or on the team?
No, I don't see anything else.
Ah, so with that, we can move up to number 12, which is your
My
team.
team. You can start off this one.
Okay, so with your team, obviously, the first thing you can say is that you have Celesteela. Many people would say that Celesteela is the best Mon in a Dynamax leagues, and I'm not going to complain about that or argue too much about that. And so, just the fact that you have that by itself makes your team very concerning. In addition to that, I like the King. I like Kangaskhan as a support mon. Scrappy fake out or inner focus fake out is incredibly powerful. The ability to also have a fairly fast tailwind setter and Latios is pretty good, but in addition to being a tailwind setter, it can just be an incredibly damaging, huge damage output Pokemon. And then Alcremie is just an amazing mon sitting next to one of your good Dynamax threats. Probably Celesteela is the one that comes to mind. And, Celesteela next to it, giving it a decorate bonus makes Celesteela immediately incredibly concerning. You also have the Manectric to cover the electric weakness to Celesteela to make it a little bit harder to deal with and make people, concerned to click Max Lightning into it because Celesteela is definitely a mon that's hard to kill if you don't hit it with super effective damage. And then obviously Morgrem being able to set up double screens makes it even better. So I definitely think what I would say is like your team supports Celesteela amazingly, and I think that's one of the strengths of your team. And also that might be partially one of the weaknesses, which is I think that your team's a little bit focused on Celesteela, which like I said, one of the better Pokemon in draft like altogether. So it's not bad, but that's kind of I think one of the big things. So any thoughts on your team?
Yeah, I think you pointed out all the great points. But I think the burden mode with Hawlucha and the Thwacky is also another good mode. Manectric also supports the Hawlucha as well, redirecting those electric attacks away. Um, I think probably like Seismitoad and the Piloswine and the Heatmore are also great pieces. This to the same Seismitoad again adds another aspect to the team, adding a rain mode with the Morgrem with Rain Dance. It's definitely really good. Um, I think Alcremie is probably one of the bigger support pieces to this team. Being able to stop taunt is really valuable for this team, specifically into the Morgrim. It doesn't get affected by a previous taunt, it still can be affected by other taunt users. So having Alcremie there to support that is really good. And um, again, I'm gonna say this right now: Heatmore will dominate. I'll make sure it will dominate. So again, to my point is look out for Heat more. Um, but yeah, I think overall, I think the team complements each other really well.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. One other thing, I guess, before we move it on, is I do think that your one thing that's a little bit annoying when I look at your team is you don't have any Pokemon that learn Trick Room. Not necessarily to set up Trick Room. You don't. I don't think it's really necessary to have your own Trick Room mode, but I think it's good to be able to undo Trick Room if you want, because right now you're basically Morgrim or Taunt is your only reason way to prevent Trick Room currently.
Yeah,
Um, or I guess Kangaskhan, but fake out turn one, or taunting it, and so I like the ability to have at least one mon, even if it's not super like a slow one, but just one that can have it as a way to counter it. But not a big issue. Like I said, I think we have you pretty high up, so I think your team's quite good. So, any other
great.
thoughts on your team?
No, I know what this team can do, so I'm looking forward to the
Oh yeah,
season.
don't want you to give away too many secrets before the start of the season.
No,
Uh,
I won't do that.
so with that, we can continue on to number 11, which is the Sacramento Sand Slashes. So what are your thoughts on this team?
Um, I think this team is very unique. Again, Togekiss being one of the premier redirectors in this format, I think picking it up very early is definitely good for this team. I think the Trick Room mode is very, very strong with the Bronzong, Pylosand, Druddigon, and the Conkeldurr is really strong, along with the Turtonator. So I think those five Pokemon alone is a really strong Trick Room mode. The fast mode is pretty good as well. Again, Alcelgor doesn't really need the Unburden proc to be really fast, as it already has a high base speed. A fast fake out user with Raichu is also good. Gengar being a decently good max threat. I think the only problem with it is probably its defensive typing is not great with Poison Ghost. But it is really fast and it can hit really hard. Um, Quillfish again is a good support option with Intimidate. Um, Having Aqua Jet liquidation to hit really hard in rain, so that's a really good option. And Bisharp to stop intimidate users from or to prevent other opponents from being intimidated is really well. But mostly this team probably revolves around the Isilgor and the Palossand with water compaction and water shuriken. Um, but yeah, I think overall it's a pretty good team. Um, yeah, passing it on to you.
So I definitely like certain things, like like you mentioned most recently, the Palasine, Selgor with Water Shuriken, and weakness policy, water compaction is like really powerful combo. It makes a mon incredibly defensively bulky. It increases its special attack to really high. Then you can max Quake to increase its own special defense, making it incredibly hard to deal with defensively, and while still making it offense. The Togepi, I think, not Togepi,
Yeah,
Togekiss,
yeah,
um,
totally.
I think pairs very well with Pokemons like Gengar, which is a mon that really wants redirection support, in my opinion, or Turtonator, which I think is a really good Shell Smash mon, and also gives you very clean way to set up um, Trick Room if you want, in which Bronzong is one of the better support mons after Trick Room is up, in my opinion. Um, so those are definitely some of the strengths. I personally am not a huge fan of their their weaknesses. They have only one ghost resist on their team, which is Bisharp, and Bisharp's not the bulkiest mon. In addition, even though you kind of mentioned it, I'm not a huge fan of Bisharp on the team. I don't think they intimidate. It's not super appealing to me looking into their team, and so I feel like its defiant aspect won't is actually not a huge deal. I feel like a lot of their offensive threats are more special, and so I feel like I don't think that like intimidate is deterring Intimidate is as big of a deal. So maybe like Snarl. So maybe in that aspect it can be useful, but I'm not a huge fan
Yeah.
of Bishop specifically. However, I do really like a lot of the Pokemon on their team. I think they have an incredibly good Trick Room mode, and I think Togekiss is one of the more flexible options as a tier 1, with being able to go max support, um, or being able to do a max, as a Dynamax threat and, do Super Luck. I definitely think that their team kind of encourages it to be a little bit more support oriented, though, which, could be a little bit of an annoyance, but I do think that it's, as always, it can always just be Super Luck and, max. So, any other thoughts?
No, I think we pointed out all the great stuff about this team.
So with
Um,
that, we can move up to number 10, which is the Kamalas.
Cardiff, yeah, Cardiff
Cardiff
Kamalas.
Kamalas. What are your thoughts on them?
I think it's probably another great uh rain dance team or rain team. Incineroar, I think it's probably another great support option. I don't particularly like using it in the rain team, but I guess it can work because parting shot is always great, especially to lure both physical and special attacking Pokemon. Um, I think the redirection is great as well with Fungus. Having access to Spore and Rage Powder is great. The trigger option on this team is a little bit lacking, I would say. Um, but I think Kling Klang and the um, Claydol are great Trick Room users and great options under Trick Room. But their fast mode again is really strong with Tornadus and Ludicolo. Having Tailwind and Rain Dance is great. Inteleon, Gmax Inteleon, as well appreciates the rain a lot with its Gmax Snipe Shot, being able to crit, um, or having a chance to crit, is always great as well. Raikou again, another mon that appreciates the rain, having 100% accurate thunders is great. Um, and Buffalon having Stop Sipper again works well for the Inteleon to switch into those grass moves. Um, and I think Omastar and Grapplock have great uses for this team as well. Again, Omastar, another Swiftwind user with Shell Smash, is probably quite unique. And Grapplock, I guess, can work well in the Trick Room, but it's a little bit underwhelming because its defensive stats are not totally great, but I think it can work decently well under Trick Room.
Well, yeah, I think looking at this team, I don't think that they really are a trick room. They don't have a trick room mode, which I don't think is an issue. In my opinion, they do. Unlike I think I was mentioning with your team, they do have mons that learn trick room, so you can undo opponents' trick rooms. So they you have consistent tailwind. So I think they definitely have the ability to outspeed their opponent's Pokemon. I think that Buffalon, which frequently a lot of people look at as like a more of a trick room mon, I personally don't like as a trick room mon that much because you want to frequently use max strikes with it, and max strikes in trick room is awkward, and so
Yeah,
I think Buffalon does well as in Tailwind, for example. I think being able to get pretty consistent, weather um, with the Tornadus so that you can get the Swift Swims is nice. Um, I think Incineroar is very powerful, as everyone, I'm sure everyone knows, and so just Incin by itself with Tornadus and some good mid to fast Pokemon that like to be in Tailwind is a very powerful team. I'm not a hugest fan of Grappllock like you mentioned specifically. I feel like they could have had a better fighting mon. I like it has a reasonable attack stat, but I feel like I would rather have maybe a more offensive or more supporty um, fighting mon. But I also don't exactly know 100% what Grappllock does, other than what its stats distribution is. Um, and then So I don't know. So I like those things about it. I definitely feel like you know, uh, I definitely think they have a good kind of combination of Pokemon, like with good damage output. Some that are really bulky, some that are a little bit more fast and frail. So like I definitely think they have a good combination of those type of things. So I think they're good. I think the team is good overall.
Yeah, I would agree with all those points.
Uh, any other thoughts before we move on?
No, I think everything has been said.
So with that, we have number 9, which is the New York Nihilegos. I guess I'll start with this. So, looking at this team, the big thing you want to note that notice, just kind of like everything is the Tapu Koko, and you can go with the Thievul for example. I think obviously Tapu Koko is very powerful. Any unburdened mon, specifically Thievul, can be very powerful. Having really fast snarls, really fast, like parting shots or knockoffs, or foul plays is really powerful. So that combination by itself is very good. I think that I think a good partner of Tapu Koko is Mamoswine. Defensively, it resists most of Tapu Koko's weaknesses, or at least offensively, it hits them. I think Gothitelle is a very good Trick Room setter. It is very annoying with Shadow Tag. Allows them to get up a pretty consistent Tailwind, or not Tailwind, Trick Room. My issue with their team is that they don't really have. They seem to like it doesn't have a great. One of the issues with this aspect is they don't have a great Trick Room sweeper per se. However, I do think that some of these mons are definitely um, more impressive than they might seem or might notice. Kingler has an absurd attack stat. Its G max form is very powerful. So if you're able to get one G max, I think it's called foam or sea foam or whatever, where
Yeah,
it
phone
lowers,
burst.
lowers the speed by by two levels is really good. Um, the Silvally is just obviously an incredibly diverse Pokemon, and then Noivern is one of the um, better Tailwind setters because getting Frisk is incredibly useful. Being able to hit with like Draco Meteors and Fire Blasts are very nice. So I definitely like some of these aspects. I think Surfetched is not the best mon, but if you can get in Tailwind, its damage output is incredibly impressive, especially scrappy close combats. Hitting Ghost Mons is really powerful. And then obviously the redirection, um, with Tangla can be useful, especially because um, it takes pretty good damage for most of the weaknesses of their two main Dynamax threats. So any thoughts on your side?
I think probably one of the major things I see is like most of these Pokemon don't want to take an electric attack, especially Takakogo increasing those electric type moves with electric terrain. And most draft players can account for the Mamoswine and the Silvally, which can be any type. Um, that's probably one of the major issues I see with this team. But again, like I said, this team can account for for that. Um, and also like the trick mode is not that bad. I would say a Skarmory can do decently well. Um, and the Punter I guess could do well, same as Surfetched. So I don't think it's that bad. I think overall it has a great fast mode with the like you mentioned with the Noivern having Frisk, being able to see those items turn one is great. Um, and I think Mamoswine and Tapu Koko are great partners. And Tapu Koko doesn't necessarily have to run Electric Surge. It can run Telepathy and spam those Disc Quakes. Is really good. So um, yeah, I think overall it's great and it's definitely deserving to be ranked number 9.
Oh yeah, no, I think I agree. It has some really good things. Other than the trick room mode, there's not much I can have to complain about this. And so, but with that, do we want to move on?
Yep.
So with that, we have number 8, the Shadow Ducks. I guess you can start with this one. What are your thoughts?
Um, Yet again, it's another rain team. Um, I think the difference between this and the rest and the other rain teams, it has Whimsicott. So, um, Whimsicott under rain is probably most preferred in most rain teams, having Tailwind being the premier support option. But again, it does have Charm, Switcheroo. Those type of supporting moves are great for this team. I think Tapu Lele is really strong, having those stab expanding forces in psychic terrain is really strong. Um, I think the trigger mode is decently okay with the BM and the Sense of Scorch. Um,
And the Magneton.
but I think everything else is okay, decently support wise, and Gavancho can utilize the rain as well from Pelipper with 100% accurate thunders.
Uh, so I definitely, there's a handful. So I guess I'll start with the things I don't like. I'm not a huge fan of the fact that they have only one flying resist, which is Magneton. As I've mentioned many times before, and hope maybe not many any more times since we're getting pretty high, but teams that that have a minus like have a weakness overall in flying, I consider a major issue because max flying is such a powerful max move. In addition to that, I'm not a huge fan of Swirlix as a Pokemon.
Yep.
So it doesn't do whole mod a lot in my opinion. It does have unburdened, so it can do a little bit of that stuff. So it's not like completely worthless, but it's I'm not super excited about it. In addition to this, um, I I guess other than that though, I do think that they have a pretty good combination of Pokemon that go with Whimsicott. I think Whimsicott pairs very well with Tapu Lele. I think it pairs really well with like Pangoro, and and Magneton, like Pokemon like that can be good Trick Room, but they can also be good, just Tailwind Mons. They have very good high special attack, but aren't super fast. I do think that they don't have a super slow any like super slow Trick Room sweepers per se. Despite having quite a few like middling speed tier Pokemon, so I definitely think that the team's a little bit focused on winning Tailwind early or um, specifically, in my opinion. So, I understand the desire why they wanted to get a tier 1 Whimsicott, which, definitely helps work with the team pretty well. Other than that, I think, you know, other than like, the flying weakness, I think most of the things are pretty, I have pretty good things to say about the team.
Yeah. Also, another thing to mention, Pigro does get parting shots, so I think for a low tier value, I think it's great for that. But yeah, I think overall the team is great.
Uh, So with that, we can move up to number 7, which is the Singapore Sligoos. I guess I'll start with this one. It is the last team with a Gigantamax form that has the residual effect like the starters do, which is the Colossal. In addition to that, it has Weavile with Fast Surf and Water Urshifu with Aqua Jet. And so they have a lot of ways to set up with the Colossal using Steam Engine and Weakness Policy. And so definitely, I think that this team, you know, for better or worse, is going to kind of come down to the effectiveness of Colossal a lot of the times. So I think it is very, very powerful, but it definitely requires very good play. Other than that, I do like a fair number of the Pokemon generically. I think that Stoutland is an underrated Pokemon because it can be both scrappy, sand rush or intimidate, and with very good bulk and pretty good offenses. Credeli is incredibly bulky, and then you got the you know amazing fast fake out and Weavile, Urshifu ignoring um, protects, and then Articuno to ignore any stat dropping stuff, Tailwind, Trick Room. So definitely pretty good. I'm not a huge fan of the Ivysaur. I feel like it's not particularly good on the team. Doesn't seem like it do as much, especially since they already have a grass Pokemon in Credilli. Um, the Trick Room component, I think is actually not bad, despite not having the best setters. Articuno and Rapidash are their only setters. However, I think Colossal can be a good Trick Room sweeper, and then Doublade is also pretty good. Same with Credilli. But anyways, I think that's about all I have to say. Any thoughts on your side?
Um, yeah, I think other than Colossal, I think Cradilly again having Storm Drain, I think is a great way to utilize that with Weavile and Urshifu. So if they don't want to risk the Colossal getting KO'd turn one, I think Cradilly is another great option for that. And I think the other supporting pieces, like you mentioned, like Stalin having three great abilities on this team is quite useful. I think Electivire and Flagon are other great Dynamax options as well. And like you mentioned before as well, like having two not like two trigger users that are not entirely great um, can be quite concerning, but I think it's right for this team. And have Articuno with both Tailwind and Trick I think is great support. Um, but yeah, I think overall the team. I think if they put their Pokemon in the right situation, I think they can definitely have a recipe of success. Um, yeah, I think that's it for me.
Well, yeah, I definitely think that's one of the things with this team specifically. I think it has the ability to be one of the better teams, but I definitely think it's a team that is going to require very good play on their coach, and so I hope that they're able to pull it off this season and do something amazing. But with that, we can move up to number 6, which is the Tyranitartar sauces with Saki. So, what are your thoughts on this team?
Um, I guess one thing is that this team is quite frail. That's probably one of the major things I see. But again, like Clefairy and Spectre is super strong in this format. Spectre can immediately Dynamax and hit off those Max Phantasms, which lowers defense, or Max Darkness is great. And Clefairy being one of, again, another premier Follow Me user. Um, is very important. I think also Spectre doesn't have to Dynamax. It can just set up Nasty Plot next to Clefairy and just go hammer things away. Um, I think Durant, again, is another good Dynamax option. Having Hustle can hit really hard with a Max Dual Spike or a Max Flutterby. And Persian, another premier support option with Parting Shot, Fake Out, Isowind, Gouache, Taunt. I think it's great as well. Um, and I think the other Pokemon can be great in their own right, but I don't quite feel it with this team. But Sigilith is great with Trick Room and Tailwind. Um, yeah, I think that's it for me. It's just that the other remaining Pokemon are quite frail, and I don't see I don't quite see the usefulness for the team. But again, I could be wrong.
So I'll start off with what I don't like about this team. Um, this team has the worst rock weaknesses of any coach in this entire league. They have 0 rock resists, and they have 4 rock weaknesses. So rock is just completely free into their team, which is my biggest issue with the team. In addition to that, that lets you do rock slide, which ignores the redirection. So that's my biggest issue with the team. Just going straight for it. However, I do think that this team is a very good Clefairy team, and that they have an amazingly offensive, threatening Pokemon that, with friend guard support, become incredibly annoying to deal with. And so that includes, the Spectrier, the Durant, the Flapple, the um, the Glaceon on the special side, right? I think, yeah,
Special side.
yeah, and Kabutops. All these Pokemon are really scary offensive threats, but they really want either to be normally running Focus Sash or a Berry or something like that. But with Clefairy, it immediately makes them threatening. So this team definitely seems like it can be incredibly offensively difficult to deal with and can be really annoying. However, it definitely feels like it's going to be a Clefairy Dynamax turn one almost every game type of team, which, can be good, can be bad, but the fact that I don't think it has as much, you know, flexibility makes it a little bit awkward. However, it does immediately put pressure onto your opponent's team. Um, and so, for better or worse, I think that's kind of the idea. So I like certain aspects of it. I really dislike its rock weakness. I really think that it could drop something like a Moga, or for example, or something like Garbodor pretty easily for a rock resist Pokemon, a Pokemon that resists rock, and it would make the team really, a lot better.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah. So with that,
All right,
are we ready to
moving
move
into
on?
the top five. Yep.
So yeah, up to the top five. Number five, we have the Morpicos, the Marinkoi Morpicos. What are your thoughts on your team? On the team?
Um, Again, this team has again another premier follow me user with the Indeedee female. I think it supports basically every single Pokemon on this team. Um, Supports Blacephalon really well. Um, and supports the Aromatisse really well instead of a medium trick room turn one, which helps the Raconid and the Escavalier to Dynamax that turn and just hit with its Max Steel Spike or Max Geyser. Um, but I also think the fast option on this team is great as well. NDD hit him on the is a great option. Gale Wings on the Fletchinder with Tailwind again is another great option. So I think the in this team highly focuses on that NDD female, and I think that's really great, especially in this format.
Yeah, I think that the Trick Room mood is great. Um, NDD Aromatisse basically prevents, or is pretty much guaranteed Trick Room. There's almost no way to prevent Trick Room from with that combination, because of Psychic Terrain preventing Fake Out, Aromatisse's ability preventing it from being like taunted or things like that, and so they get up Trick Room very consistently, and then they have two, well, kind of three premier um, Trick Room Pokemon in Exavalier, Araquanid, and Dragalge. So I think that's all. It makes, like, that by itself makes the team very concerning. In addition to that, I think that Blacephalon is a very good partner with Indeedee. I believe it gets expanding force actually, and then it's very fast, has good special attack, and then you have some other support mons like we've mentioned with the Hitmon, Hitmonlee, the Talonflame, whatever, baby Talonflame, Morpeko, and then you know even Pikachu can be very annoying for opponents to deal with when it's next to an NDD, because Follow Me with Light Bulb G Max Pikachu, making both your opponent's Pokemon get paralyzed is absurdly annoying. And so, so it has I think, NDD basically makes a lot of Pokemon very powerful, and being able to get consistent Trick Room up makes a lot of their Trick Room sweepers even more powerful. I am a little
Yeah.
concerned with their rock weakness, though. It's with Hitmonlee being their only rock resist. But it's not as huge of a deal. But it is a noteworthy.
Yeah. I think another thing they could potentially like trade for, probably trade out the common Pokemon. I always forget it 'cause it's just one of those forgettable Pokemon. Um, it does get Regenerator, but I think that's probably the only redeeming quality about it. I don't quite see a use on this team, but again, I could be wrong about that take. So we'll just see.
Oh yeah, I think it's just they just wanted a Grassmon, but yeah, it doesn't seem super synergistic, but yeah, we shall see. Anything else before we move on?
Nope.
At number 4, we have the SARS.
South Cardinal Swords. Yeah.
Exactly. So what are your thoughts on the team?
Um, I think it's a great unburdened team. With the Rillaboom and the Slurpuff. I think like most unburdened teams, I think again it usually pairs well with each other. Talonflame again is a really good tailwind option with Gale Wings. Um, Supports the PZ, the Sylveon, the Alakazam, just to name a few. But I also think the Trick Room option is okay. But I think only Alakazam gets Trick Room, so that's quite concerning a little bit. But I think overall, like that Trick Room court with the Steelix Crystal and the Spiritomb is great. Um, I think Artillery is also great with it. I think it has a low base speed. Correct me if I'm wrong about that. But yeah, I think overall both sides of Tailwind and Trick Room are great. I think the only concern is probably just Trick Room mode. Having a better Trick Room user other than Alakazam would be great. But
Well, yeah.
yeah.
Well, yeah. Porygon Z also has Trick Room, but yeah, but both
Okay.
both of
I
them are
forgot about
pretty
that.
pro. Um, I really like a lot of aspects of the team, but the team really looks to me like it wants a redirection mon, because I feel like redirection mons pair really well with Crustle, so you can shell smash, Slurpuff, so you can belly drum, and with Porygon Z just as a good, an absurdly good offensive threat. However, even without it, I think they do have some very good, things going for them. Uh, a lot of good mons. I agree, though. I think that they don't have the best trick room setters, even though they have a couple of mons that kind of lean trick room and Steelix and Machamp and even Crustle to a certain extent. And so I definitely, honestly think this team, uh, and then Rillaboom I think can be really powerful, especially with Slurpuff. Um, like what? Yeah, my thought with this team is like I feel like it's honestly ranked a little high for me. I think that if any of these Pokemon was replaced with the redirector, it might be number one in my books. But without it, it definitely has like a lot of mons that seem like it'd be really useful with a redirector specifically. And then also their team is a little bit weak to flying for my taste, with the only flying resist on their team being the Steelix.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But yeah, if they get a better Trick Room user, I think it would be great. And like you mentioned, probably a redirection
Well,
Pokemon would be definitely great on this team.
well, yeah. So I guess the idea is like if you have a redirector, then Alakazam is a fine Trick Room mon because it does have inner focus, so you don't, things
Yeah,
like that. So it's like, I feel like let's just say Octillery, because Octillery is a fine mon, but it's not like a key piece to this team. If it was like a Togepi or Tangela or what have you, I think the team would be like absurd. But not saying it's not good now. I'm just saying like it definitely feels like the team has so many strong pieces, but a lot of the pieces like all the strong pieces kind of would seem to have synergized with the same exact piece.
Yeah. I agree with what you're saying.
So, anyways, with that, I guess we can move up to number 3, which is the Suffolk's
So,
Suicunes with
and hopefully the final rain team, kind of. Um, and like I said, as another rain team with Polytoad, the Thunderous, and the Regiseal, I think those three definitely make up that rain team. I think Registeel is really annoying in this format. It doesn't necessarily have to Dynamax because it has both Iron Defense and Amnesia, so it can cover both sides. And if you don't taunt it, then it's basically over from there. Um, I think Thunderous is a great max option. Um, can be both physical or special, or even support. Um, but yeah, I think those three together are fantastic. And does appreciate rain because it's quite frail and doesn't really want to take a fire hit or a flying hit as well. So um, I think one thing that I notice is Salazzle, um, it being a fire type, won't be able to use its strong fire moves, but it does get fake out, so that's good support. Um, I think
and
Articuno, or go ahead.
and Slash also gets beat up,
Yeah, that too. So it does support the Verzion. Um,
and the
I
Glade.
think they're already. Oh yeah, that as well. Um, I think Articuno is okay as a or not trick. I'm sorry, Tailwind user. I think it does okay for this team. Um, yeah, I think that's pretty much it for me. Um, yeah,
Oh yeah, so I think the big one that I'll start with, yes, I think that Salazzle is a great support mon with the Virizion, making Virizion a massive Dynamax threat and something you have to respect every single week, because the beat up, 117 base speed Pokemon beating up 108 speed Mon that also has max airstream and has an amazing special defense stat is very annoying, and something you have to be able to deal with, um, because otherwise it can just immediately win you the game. I think that the pseudo rain mode I think is very powerful. Politoad's a powerful mon in a general sense, and the weather helping defensively into the Registeel can be very good. The offensive damage output of Pokemon like the Sharpedo can be really relevant. I think that soft rain, Polito doesn't need a partners to be necessarily good. Um, I like Weezing generically, but I do feel like a lot of these mons on their team like their abilities. So I feel like, and I don't think that too many Pokemon benefits from like the misty terrain, for example. So I imagine it's going to be levitate wheezing a lot if they want to bring it. Um, so it's not not the most exciting, but I do like wheezing generically. But generally, the big one is Thundurus is an amazingly powerful Pokemon in Dynamax because it is a good Dynamax threat that can also be an amazing support mon.
yep, I would agree.
So with that, I guess we can go up to number 2, which is the Charlotte Beedrills. I guess I will start with this. So first and foremost, they were the first overall pick. They picked up, I believe, Dragapult. Dragapult is an amazing Pokemon. It is a good max threat or non-max threat. It has amazing base speed. It can be physical or special. It's a great like weakness policy mon, for example, because um, it has clear body, so you can't lower its stats with intimidate or other things like that. Defensively, I like their team. I really like Rabombi on their team. They have a couple of mons I think are really good with speed swap with Rabombi, namely Lucario, um, Crocodile, and Moltres. Those are like mons that have really good offensive outputs that don't have the greatest speed stat. And so, despite not having a tailwind, they have really good speed control with that because they can't be faked out because of shield dust. Um, and you can get, up to Rabambi speed, which Rabambi, has the 124 base speed, which is, very fast. Um, Other than that, I I also do like NDD Mel as a partner with Dragapult generically, because I think being able to prevent priority moves from hitting it is always good, and the fact that they don't share a ghost weakness is also pretty good. And then obviously just expanding force does massive damage. Um, other than that, I guess nothing, nothing else too noteworthy on my side. But those are definitely some of the big things I like. I definitely think that they could have. I'm not a huge fan of Laron specifically on their team, but most of the other Pokemon I really like. So any thoughts on from your side?
Yeah, I think other than like the speed swap shenanigans with Rubampe, I think the beat up and the frost breath strat is really good on this team. Because Dragon Ball does get beat up, so it can go into the Lucario and just set up for that. And Glalie does get frost breath, so it can hit the Crocodile with anger pointing it at +6, um, which can be immediate threat if you can get that up and going. And like you mentioned, like the Intuitive Mill, even though it doesn't have Follow Me like its counterpart, it does have a high special attack stat. So it's hitting hard with an expanding force definitely will hurt. And I think the other supporting or the other components to the team definitely works well.
Um,
Yeah, that's it for me.
but yeah, so with that, that was our number two team, and finally our number one team, the Norwegian Dermanitans. So what are your thoughts on this team?
Um, I think again, it's another unique team. I think the Trick Room mode, particularly, is very strong with the Glacier and uh, the Gorgeist being the main Trick Room user. But again, like Power Spot on the Stone Joner is really good, especially in this format, so it can help out the Glacier and the Entei to hit really hard. I think the supporting pieces like Zigzagoon, Galar, Mr. Mime, and the Berserker are definitely good. Having two fake out users is completely fine. I feel like in Corsola being another trigger motion with that high special attack stat, especially with like a power meteor beam set, is really strong. And I think um, Suicune and the oh, I'm trying to remember this. Um, I can't remember the Ultra Beast's name.
Uh,
Um,
oh yeah, the Pheromosa.
yeah, the Pheromosa. I think both are probably their premier support options. Suicune has Tailwind, and the Pheromosa has a Speed Swap. So Glacier can potentially just go fast mode and just hit super strong and get those max hail storms up, and get the immediate attack boost and just go to town with that. So I think definitely this team definitely deserves that number ring spot.
But yeah, I definitely agree. I think that Pheromosa Glastrier by itself is an amazing combination that strikes fear into a lot of people. I think their Trick Room mode is very powerful. I think Gorgeist is a good Trick Room setter. I think that Berserker is a good partner with like Fake Out to be able to help get Trick Room up. And in addition to Glastrier, they also have Cursula as a good Trick Room sweeper as well. I think Entei is very powerful Mon, both as a max option and just as a non-max option. Just Sacred Fires, getting 50% burn chances is absurd. Um, I'm not a huge fan of their type chart a little bit. Their team's a little bit weak to Ghost. Their team's a little bit weak to Rock, but it's not. It doesn't. I don't think it detracts too much from their team. I think that their team has a lot of very nice support mons, and that also kind of do a lot of stuff outside of the support. Like the Berserker, has fake out, but it's Stilly Spirit, and as its physical attack is massive. The Mister Mine has fake out, double screens, icy wind, I believe, or maybe it's Thunderwave. Something like that as speed control. The Suicune being amazing. So overall, they have a lot of good mons, and a lot of Pokemon that kind of, though they seem like a certain role, have flexibility. Because like the Gore guys can be a bulky trick room setter, but also can have 99 base speed, and just you know do something like trick or treat and give something a ghost typing, and then you can hit it with a dark move or something like that. So definitely have a lot of flexibility with their Pokemon and a lot of
Yeah.
powerful threats. So I guess with that, here is the final rankings for everyone. If so you all can see them in one grouping. So I guess any final thoughts on any of the rankings or anything in general?
Um, it's just that I wish everybody luck, especially to the new coaches. I know that it's quite scary facing off against strong veterans and strong teams. So, wish everyone good luck. Yeah, that's it for me.
Uh, I'm hoping for a good season for everyone. And as always, this just and we already said this, but I'll say it once again, this is just our opinions. So don't yell at us. Hopefully, if we said anything bad, you either can prove us wrong, or maybe you can make some trades in free agency. To fix up some of those issues that you might not have noticed or you might have just overlooked. So with that, I hope everyone enjoyed. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see y'all next time.